So, I don't know what it is. Like, if I ever actually get the time to sit down and do proper ruminations of this series, I plan to look more into the behind the scenes, the making of, because just the quality level has just jumped up. So this episode has a typical A-B plot format like a lot of television does, like I've been talking about extensively over on the Star Trek stuff, and yet, what we're seeing here is they are having both A plot and B plot not only critical and integral to the overall story, but are basically just different sides of the same story. They split up the kidnapping. The chairman is going off and looking through the criminal underworld, and she's going directly to the Trade Federation ship to try and figure this out. And both of them are trying to basically solve the same problem and come at it from different angles, which allows them to succeed. That's great. That's great interweaving. I also like how everyone... I've noticed this, even in otherwise weird circumstances, I tend to enjoy competency regardless, and I do enjoy seeing these people being actually competent. It's kind of nice. But what I really want to comment on is how I love the fact that this is managing to actually bring up things like the Trade Federation, blockades, and political intrigue, and make it interesting. You can do that. I've been struggling with terminology for the better part of 20 years for what to call, because I've always called it, when it comes to fiction, I've always insisted that there's interesting politics and then there's blah politics. And there's a pretty big gulf between the two, and you can always tell which is which, but we have the same term for both, politics, right? A political storytelling. Episode 1 did have political storytelling. And so does Game of Thrones, and Final Fantasy Tactics, and so forth and so on. And you can tell the difference between them, but I've been struggling with terminology. This one feels more like the interesting category. The stuff that's like, oh my god, I'm actually engaged in what's going on. The way they outmaneuver him is fascinating. I dare, but I'm willing to play ball. If you manage to remove this blockade and go back to normal trade operations, we'll totally be cool with letting this go, and we'll talk for you in the Senate. You get to keep your neutrality, and we get to keep our functionality as because let's be honest, just about any planet or any system or any power in as of the time of the prequel trilogy or the original trilogy pretty much depends on intergalactic trade, right? I mean, kind of like how cities in real life do nowadays, so that makes sense. Anyways, but yeah, I love the way they showcase this and the way they outmaneuver them and the way they play them and the way all the pieces just kind of fit together. Another thing I tend to enjoy in this episode is I like how it shows that there's more shadings to the sides. We see that the politicians are not all scheming, corrupt idiots or idealistic morons, and we see that the Nemoidians, specifically, and the Separatists in general, are not all dead puppies, which is a nice thing to see in your fiction. Some layers of actual shading. And they're ogres, is what I'm trying to say. As an aside, my favorite scene in this by far was when the chairman goes and basically pushes Greedo out into the open. He approaches Jabba, and he simultaneously manages to be humble, putting himself below Jabba, but speaks to him as an equal. And you can see how Jabba appreciates that and is like, yeah, okay. We'll go ahead and submit to this. And Greedo's like, okay, no, I did it, I'm sorry. I just love that. One of the universal truths about some of the better written Star Wars stuff is that anytime you get Jabba involved on your side, the other side regrets it. Anyways, good fun. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time.